step 4 overview, page 77. Step 4 is difficult. It can be frightening, but we will find courage like we've never known before when we admit our fears and then move forward anyways. For you see, courage never exists in the absence of fear. It is only when we feel fear that we can learn what it means to act with courage. Courage means to move forward in spite of fear, to move in very direction that we are afraid of. We've already done this to some degree. It was, after all, somewhat scary when we turned our will and our life over to God, but we did it anyways. The desire to recover from our addiction compels us. When we turn our lives over, we became a partner with God, partnering to develop His life in us. Step 4 is part of our responsibility as a partner in new life that God has given to us. This is because God will not do for us what only we can do for ourselves.
Now, Pete, stop right there for a second, if you would.
I was afraid of speaking.
Sorry?
I was afraid of speaking.
Oh, no. You read beautifully. But I'd like to know your thoughts, your personal thoughts on what you read.
You know, the concept of fear is a perception. And it's a perception that we create for ourselves. And it hasn't really happened. And that perception is based upon our experience of whether or not we're going to experience something to the same degree as what we become fearful of. So whether or not what we're stepping into is something to be afraid of or something that's completely different, it's hard to say. It's something that one always deals with. So you just kind of put it to the back of your mind and you move forward.
Okay. Let me read a couple questions here. Thank you, Pete. Thank you. And by the way, anybody else have any thoughts on this? Okay. So let me just read a question. And if you like, you can jot a little note here. In the in the Our Journey Home book, in this chapter 4, there's a whole bunch of questions that are formatted to help you just write some things down. That's what an inventory is. It's the big book, Bill W. in the big book calls it, it's a fact-finding mission. And being a former businessman, he uses the analogy of it's an inventory, and any business that wants to stay in business needs to know where they're at. And so they do a biannual or an annual inventory, and they go through and they count every little item on the shelf. They know what's coming in, they know what's going out, so they know at this moment in time, at this day, this is who we are, to the best of their ability. It's essential information. So let me ask you this question here. What are you angry about and why? A lady earlier going, well, I'm a lady. We don't get angry. And that's when I just started to kind of want to move away. Because in my personal life, I have seen a few angry women before. And this lovely lady, when she comes to terms with that question, she will discover some amazing things that may not be terribly pleasant, but they will be life-changing and will benefit her greatly. The other question is, and this is a question that helps you with the first question. How have others hurt you? Was it family, friends, people from church or school? There you go. Okay, now my next reader, another lovely lady, Amanda. We need a mic for you. And,
okay, recovering a healthy relationship with ourselves, page 83. We sift through our life, past and present, in order to identify the selfish thinking, the corrupted beliefs, and the ineffective emotional maladjustments that promote our addictions. We need to understand that addictions grow because of self-centeredness. Addiction is not the cause of moral failings, nor is it a moral failing in and of itself. Addiction and its subsequent moral failings are caused by spiritual and emotional longings that have gone unmet. Because of this, it is critical that we see how we have contributed to our own spiritual and emotional deprivation. For you see, our addictions take hold of us as we seek to meet needs that we cannot meet and escape pain that is too much for us to handle on our own. Sadly, in addiction, the very things that we have used to escape our pain actually increase our pain, and addictions grow and deepen all the more.
Wow. It's powerful when you read that.
I wish I hadn't picked this one.
She did pick that one. I don't assign them, I let them pick.
So I struggle with codependency.
Me too.
And probably some other things. Well, definitely some other things. But when I first came into recovery and did a step 4, it was really hard for me to accept that I was selfish, because codependents tend to put other people first and deny their own needs and don't take care of themselves very well. So it really ticked me off to be told I was being selfish by the book or whatever. But now I see that there were some really unmet needs in my childhood growing up, and that codependency was a way of controlling people to make myself feel safer. So not that I let myself off the hook, but I give myself grace. But that so many of my addictive behaviors were about trying to make my life better, making myself safer by controlling the people around me. And so when I thought I was being extremely helpful, I was really trying to create a safer life for myself.
Wow, it's great insight. Amanda, before you sit down, because in my short time I've gotten to know you, you're a woman who's found necessary courage. You're working the program. And it's not like, you know what, we need to be heroes. The only courage we need is to keep moving forward. If that means you answer one question a day on a list of questions, or you do 15 minutes of journaling a day, that's fine. In the 12 steps, and we can talk about this more later. Bear with me, Amanda. I'm coming right back to you. In the 12 steps, this is something that step 4 does not say. It does not say it has to be exhaustive. It doesn't have to be perfect. The word complete is not there. It says searching and fearless. Fearless really is, it's kind of priming your pump, because addicts and alcoholics and codependents, we are people who have asserted a great amount of courage, but in all the wrong ways. And yet we don't even quite realize it. It's there. You know, clinically, you can call addiction a shame-based disorder. Very true statement. And shame is that part of us, and believe me, I'm 18 years sober, and I've worked hard at this for 17 and a half years. And I am sometimes astounded at how much shame comes up. But shame is that part that says, you know what? It's never going to work out. Sooner or later, you're going to blow this thing up. But let me encourage you to think about the crazy, insane ways that you have asserted courage in your life through your addictions. And what God is asking you to do, or actually I should say He's inviting you to do, is to take that kind of that corrupted fortitude, that addicted fortitude, and bring it to Him, and the two of you together in partnership, because that's what a 12-step program is. You're going to be in partnership with God and other people. Partnership to help you find a way that you assert your fearlessness in a healthy way that will benefit you and your loved ones. Now, coming back to Amanda, thank you for sitting here for so long. When you were reading this, it was more powerful hearing you read it than I ever remember it being when I wrote it. And what was it like for you to read this in front of these people? What did it feel like?
It doesn't really feel scary anymore because I feel really safe with these people.
But you're standing up with a microphone in your face.
Yeah, I don't mind that too much. But it's hard to read it's hard to talk about being selfish.
Yeah.
I don't like saying that out loud very much. And it's hard to say, we cannot meet and escape pain that is too much for us to handle. I get what you're saying about courage. I think I hurt myself so much. My sponsor says you kept showing up with a knife to a gunfight in so many situations with people that it took, I don't know why I wasn't afraid to keep getting hurt over and over again. So this is, in comparison, I'm now 2 years into the program, and in comparison, the fear, like I couldn't go back. It would be way scarier to go back than go forward. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, courageous lady. And Amanda just referenced something that is, and I'll be brief on this. I'm already seeing, not letting time get away from this. Allow your fear and allow your pain to be a motivator. Don't try to kill that. Don't try to, don't even try to overcome that. Let it be your motivator. That's okay. I am not a believer that we have to be people with perfectly pure motives, because I'm certainly disqualified. We suit up and show up just the way we are, and we find over and over and over again when we walk in honestly to the appropriate places and honestly with God, we are met with a grace that changes us. And it gives us what we lack. Okay. Thank you for that. My third reader is Miss Carrie.
All Things Good, page 99. Because of Christ, it is no longer necessary for us to avoid or escape the pain that we experience in life. In Christ, we can find a good purpose in everything. In faith, we believe that He makes all things good, and because there is no limitation to the meaning of all, we can accept every pain and difficulty as an opportunity for goodness. Pain can be a great teacher and a wonderful motivator. Pain compels us forward, motivating us to reach out. It's as if our past problems, fears, pains, and sins become monuments along the road of our journey. They become memorable points of progress that help us, and others too, to journey deeper into the empowering love of God.
Thank you, Terry. Would you share your... By the way, are you Amanda's sponsor?
I told her it was a butter knife to a gunfight, not a knife.
Sponsor. You know what? Let me tell you. The first reality of being a sponsor is to come to terms with the fact that they really don't listen to a whole lot. And neither did I. You make me laugh, Terry.
Thank you.
You're sharing your thoughts with us from this section on page 99.
Pain is a difference for me of how I want something to be and how it is. And I try not to read this so that I just shoot from the hip when I read it so I can see what pops up. And about a year ago, something happened that was very, very painful. And my husband gave me space to have a good cry about it and just sit with it. And my feelings weren't facts, they're just feelings. And called my sponsor a lot of times in that week. And a similar thing happened a year later, and I was a completely different person. And to the point where my husband said, "Oh my gosh, you didn't even cry." And the point wasn't that I didn't cry so much, is that internally, the grown-up Terry was able to show up, and the childhood Terry, she's kind of going away. She's leaving in a good way. Thanks.
May I ask you, when you were reading this out loud to these folks here, what was that experience like?
I have a similar feeling to Amanda. I think it's super fun in here. I'd like to run around the room and give everybody a high five, and it's super safe in here.
We'll do that on the 12th week. We'll do that.
It's just extremely safe in here, and I love that about this room.
Wow. Someone is saying safe and comfortable when we talk about step 4. Thank you, Jerry. Well, let me share with you kind of my personal and somewhat providential experience with step 4. And the whole nature of doing an inventory in the 12 steps, it's not just step 4. Step 10 says we continued to take inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. Step 4 gives us a second bite at the apple. So I share that with you because I want to alleviate whatever pressure or stress you may be feeling about doing an inventory. Honesty is the only essential component. That's it. Nobody grades this. If you start feeling graded on your inventory, get away from that person. And I ain't joking. Also in step 12, it says we practice these principles in all our affairs. And these principles includes this healthy self-assessment. That's what this is. The Apostle Paul, and I'm not a Bible teacher or a Bible scholar. I approach the Bible like a pizza. I mean, I'm hungry. And you can tell by looking at me that I eat too many carbohydrates, and so I consume the Bible the same way. I just kind of like gobble it up. And Paul says in one of his letters to the churches, he says, I don't even judge myself anymore. I'm just I am what I am. That's what we learn to do in this process. You know the feeling, and I say this with a degree of assumption, of falling asleep at night, and you're tired, and you're exhausted, and you're in your bed, and you're all comfy, and you turn the light out, and you're just about ready to doze off, and you remember something from the past, and you go, you know that feeling? Or you think about a person or a situation that happened, and your heart rate goes up about 10 points. You know what I'm talking about? The reason why we do a searching and fearless moral inventory is to take all of that stuff and you get it on a piece of paper, and that's where you can deal with it. As long as it's bouncing around in here and bouncing around in here, it will torture you. When you put it down on a piece of paper and you start to write it out, you are creating clarity. You are creating perspective. You are taking command of your own memory and your own experience. Isn't that amazing? So here's what happened to me. I was doing my first 4-step inventory in a workbook, spiritual journey workbook. It's a biblical guide to the 12 steps. I had set it on my desk to bring it tonight, and I got distracted and forgot to leave it. It's a great workbook. Many of you, I see some heads nodding, so I think you're probably aware of it. And I was about 7 or 8 months sober. I was on probation for drugs, and when you're on probation, the police can come search your house at any time, and they did. They decided to show up my house, and a whole bunch of them. Police cars and vans, and somehow or another they had come to believe that I had guns and drugs in the house. I had never kept drugs in my home. I had kept guns, but I'd gotten rid of all the guns when I got arrested because that's what they told me I had to do. And I didn't even know that word, but I found that being compliant saved me a whole lot of trouble. So, and they searched my house. And part of the searching, they pulled this cardboard box. It was a big box, about this big, out of my closet, and they tore it open. Now, I had brought this box with me from Texas in 1989, and this was 1999 when this search happened. Now, they were so thorough in my house that my house was a bit of a mess afterwards. And I didn't even touch it for like several days. This was like a Wednesday. And the weekend came along, and I started cleaning up my house. And I went into the bedroom. I was kind of putting things back together, and I was hanging clothes back up where they had pulled down. And I see this box, and I was like, oh, that's right, that box. And I had it taped up from Texas and never even opened it in all this 10 years that I've lived there. But they had torn it open. And I was like, man, I forgot all about this box. And I opened it up, and I just was flooded with shame when I saw what I saw. There's pornography in there. About 15 years before, my girlfriend and I, we worked in pornography to make drug money. And somehow or another, I don't remember how it happened, but I had a bunch of pictures in this box. And this box was full of old clothes and like some sports memorabilia and a whole bunch of that. But the pornography was right on top. And I looked at this, and my first thought was, oh my gosh, my probation officer is so hopeless. You know the feeling, don't you? Or maybe you don't, but you know my feeling. That being caught. That being suddenly naked and exposed. Humiliated. And it was all my own doing. I called my sponsor. I forgot, my sponsor was in the hospital. I called my backup sponsor. He didn't answer the phone. And I went into this huge panic where I was just assaulted with wave after wave of desire for cocaine. Now, if I went out and used cocaine, I'm going to jail. But I didn't know what else to do with this horror, this humiliation. And I walk around my house pacing, trying to continue to clean up my house, and pacing, God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And the thought came to me, do your step 4 inventory. Wow. I dragged that box from the bedroom out across the house to my little office. And I took the first top picture and I set it on the desk. And the picture was me and a young lady. I had known this young lady for years. And I just started typing about what my life was like and about my friendship and relationship with this young lady. And we worked together. I pulled out another picture and I wrote some more, and I started talking about the times, about what life was like, what I was like. And I wrote about the things about myself that I hated, that were right here in front of me, in the pictures. I finished up at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I think I got up to go pee, and that was it. I just was compelled to do this. Saved my life. I did not know that box was a metaphor for what I had been dragging around in my life. I didn't even know it was there. I had taped it all in a box, taped up, protected, ready to go with me to the next place. That set me up for the time that I could do my step 5 inventory. or by step 5, discussion, which we'll talk about next week. I now look back and see that moment, or those moments that evening of doing that work is what launched me into a new existence. I'm still emotionally affected by my former life, but it doesn't handcuff me like it once did. It's used for my benefit, and I pray for your benefit too. God has shown me that through this process of working the 12 steps, the worst that I have done and the worst that has been done to me finds value. Wow. So, I don't want to close the door. I don't even want to escape it. Here it is. So, let me share one more thing with you. Brene Brown, amazing lady, spent 10 years as a clinical psychologist studying shame. By the way, step 4, clinically, is a shame-reducing exercise. Did you know there are such things? The more that you start writing things down about the reality of your life, the more you find freedom. This is what she says. When we deny our stories, which is our history and our reality, they define us. When we own our stories, we get to write a brave new ending. And steps 1, 2, and 3, we made the decision. We came to a point where we made the decision of what our lives wanted to be like. And step 4 is where you put that